Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching Disruptive Investing. And we're about to speak with Ina Braverman. She's the founder and CEO of EcoWave Power, a really cool company that just got on the NASDAQ. So Ina, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so intrigued by the way you started the company. You started really young. And so please give us some background on how you started this company.
So I live in Israel, but I was actually born in Ukraine in 1986. And 2 weeks after I was born, the Chernobyl nuclear reactor exploded, causing the largest in history nuclear disaster in terms of costs and casualties. And I was one of the babies that got hurt from the negative effects of the explosion. One day my mother, she approached my crib and she just looked down at me and she saw me pale and blue and not breathing. And I was clinically dead. And she ran to my dad and she was like, my baby is dead, what do I do? And he reminded her that you're a nurse, do something. From the stress, she forgot she's a nurse. And then she actually gave me a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation until the ambulance came and, she saved my life. So I got a second chance in life and I really, really wanted to do something good with it. And of course, I don't remember any of that incident. I kept hearing about it in family gatherings and holidays and so on. And you feel really unique, you got a second chance in life. It's not something that happens to just anybody. So I grew up always with the feeling okay, I have a purpose. I want to do something good. I want to give something back to the world. And when I was 4 years old, my family immigrated from the Ukraine to Israel. And we settled in a very, very small town in Israel called Akko. It's in the north, which didn't really have anything because Israel was a very young country, still is. We didn't even have cinema or a shopping mall in our childhood in the city. So most of my time as a child was spent on the beach. And but I kept having this desire, even although I'm from a small city and, without too many possibilities, I want to do something good for the world. And as I grew up, I decided to go study political science because I thought that, okay, maybe if I study political science, I can become this great politician and change the world for the best. And when I actually finished my university, I found out that there is no lineup of politicians that are waiting to hire a major in political science. The prime minister didn't call. So I started to look for a job. And the first job that I found was as English Hebrew translator in a renewable energy company. And that's where I discovered the whole world of renewable solar energy and wind energy and wave energy. And whereas solar energy and wind energy were already packed industries with competition, everybody were fighting for kind of a piece of the same pie. Wave energy was something new and exciting, and all the companies in the world were kind of the big companies were in a race of how to develop a commercially viable wave energy technology. And no matter how much money was invested or how much technical resources or contacts these companies had, they couldn't make wave energy happen. And I said to myself, again, I was 24 when I opened the company, but, and I guess that's the innocence of being 24 years old. But I said to myself, okay, these companies with all the money and the technical experience and the contact, they cannot do it. I can do it. And I really started researching the wave energy field and seeing where other companies have failed. And I came up with my own concept and ideas of how to make wave energy a reality. But I put those aside as unrealistic because, again, I didn't even have the funding to register a patent, let alone to build a power station. And then one day I went to a social event, and in the social event I met David Leb, the co-founder of EcoWave Power. And he came and sat next to me, and I didn't know who he was. And he just asked me, "What's your passion?" And I said, "Wave energy." And it was like a match made in business heaven because he's a serial entrepreneur, and with the funds that he got from his exits, he basically invested in real estate, including a surf hotel in Panama. So he was sitting there in Panama, looking at the power of the waves and saying to himself, there must be something better that we can do with the power of the waves other than marine sports. So he, at a completely different side of the world, also was researching wave energy and became passionate about wave energy. So when I told him that, my passion is wave energy as well, that was kind of the beginning of EcoWave Power.
So I think that a lot of people have heard of, obviously wind and solar. I don't think that a lot of people have even heard of wave energy. Could you kind of go through how your process works and maybe some of the difficulties that some other companies have, kind of failed on?
So our floaters, we basically have unique floater shapes in order to have optimal generation of energy. These floaters, they connect to existent man-made structures such as piers, breakwaters, jetties, and other types of marine structures. Our floaters are going up and down with the movement of the waves. They're pushing a hydro cylinder, which transmits biodegradable fluid into land-located accumulators. Then a pressure is being built in the accumulators. The higher the waves, the higher the pressure, which is used to turn the hydromotor, turn in a generator, and send in clean electricity to the grid via an inverter. When the waves are too high for the system to handle, the floaters automatically rise above the water level, and they lock in the upward position until the storm passes. When the storm passes, the floaters automatically commence operation. Very similar to wind turbines, when the wind blows too strong, the turbines actually, they stop rotating. They freeze to prevent damage to the turbines. What's very different from eco-wave power's concept to previous concepts that have been implemented in the wave energy sector is that 99% of our competitors decided to go into the offshore. The offshore means 4 or 5 kilometers into the sea. Now, when they went so far into the offshore, they handled 5 big problems. The first problem was the cost of the systems. So when you go into the offshore, they basically put this huge floater with all the conversion mechanism inside the floater. So to do it, you need ships and divers and underwater mooring and cables. So the cost becomes sky high. The second problem was the reliability and survivability of those systems. Because in the offshore, you get waves of 20 meters and even higher. And unfortunately, no man-made stationary equipment can survive the loads of a 20-meter wave height. So these super expensive, bulky, huge systems would break down sometimes after a few days of operation with total loss to the system. Insurance companies saw that it's so expensive and it's breaking down all the time. They didn't want to really insure wave energy, offshore wave energy. And environmentalists, which were supposed to be the greatest proponents and supporters of wave energy, were actually objecting offshore wave energy because it created a new presence on the ocean floor, which disturbed the marine environment. And these companies, they got so preoccupied with trying to take down the cost and up the survivability of the systems that most of them didn't even get the chance to connect to the electrical grid. So there also became a big question mark on whether wave energy can even connect to the grid. So what EcoWave Power did different is basically we decided not to go into the offshore. We are operating on the onshore or nearshore only on existent man-made structures, as we said, such as piers, jetties, breakwaters, and so on. And by doing so, the only thing in the water are the floaters. The floaters belong in the water. All our expensive machinery is on land, just like a regular power station. So the price is significantly lower. The reliability is high. Plus we have the storm protection mechanism. We're 100% insurable by reputable global insurance companies. We're 100% environmentally friendly. And we've been connected to the grid in Gibraltar since 2016, showing that wave energy can safely connect to the electrical grid.
So how much energy can you get out of an eco-wave power system compared to, let's say, a comparably sized wind generator? Like if I were to open a wind generator right next to your eco-wave power station in Gibraltar, how much power would I be making versus how much power are you making?
So first of all, wave energy water in general is 832 times denser than air, meaning that you can produce much larger electricity amounts with much smaller, thus cheaper devices because of the density of the source. With that said, it really depends in which location you're implementing it, because if you're implementing, some locations in the world are very sunny and not very wavy. Some locations in the world are very windy but not very sunny. So each location has different renewable energy sources. What is unique in wave energy is that it is less intermittent than other renewable energy sources. Meaning, like, for example, solar is an amazing source of renewable energy, which is implemented in many, many locations, but you have the night or cloud coverage or winter when the source is no longer available. Wave energy in suitable locations can operate 24/7 around the clock. With that said, of course, I'm super passionate about wave energy and I'm not very objective. But I do believe that the solution for the world's problems and for climate change is incorporating all renewable energy sources, because each renewable energy source is available during different times of the day, during different months in the year. So really, if we want to get to 100% environmentally friendly world, we need to combine all the sources together.
So that leads me to a question about batteries. Solar and wind really do need to be complemented by batteries because, like you said, there's 12 hours a day when there's no sun, there's many hours when there's no wind. But I don't know much about waves, but I think growing up here in Boston, there's waves all the time. Do you need batteries as much as solar and wind do?
So because we are less intermittent source, because wave energy really, again, in suitable locations happens around the clock. So we need, in those kind of locations, we do not need batteries, or we need less batteries. I think also that solar and wind will need to rely and use much less battery and storage capacities if they would be combined, like solar and wind and wave combined. So each source will be happening during different times of the day. For example, when a solar plant shuts down at night, instead of like creating this big load on the grid with 100 megawatts, let's say, working in the morning and then zero being transmitted to the grid at night, you will have other sources compensating for it.
You have an accumulator as part of the system and how it works. Does that act as a bit of a battery?
So it acts as a battery, but not in the traditional way. Basically, you have a certain time period between one wave and another. So let's say in Israel, it's about 6 seconds between one wave and another. And because we want to transmit the electricity to the grid in a very stable manner, we have the accumulators that are there not to accumulate for long periods of time, but to accumulate during this period. They can accumulate for up to 2 minutes between one wave and another to make sure that we transmit the electricity in a smooth way to the grid.
Looking at your system, I think one of the things that's always been that we've always been a little bit pessimistic about with wave energy is that you're in the ocean and that's salt water, and we know that salt water is really tough on mechanical stuff. So you've had a system in place now since 2016. What have you learned about firsthand about like how it works with salt water?
So first of all, we took into account the salt water. So we're using special marine painting, same like you would, even our floaters look like little boats. So we maintain them similarly to how you would maintain a boat or a ship in a marina or any type of marine vessel. Basically, what is smart and good about our system is, as I said, the only thing in the water are the floaters, and the floaters belong in the water. All our expensive parts, like the hydraulic conversion parts, the electric parts, the automation, the sensors, everything is located on land, just like a regular power station. Again, as opposed to the competition that put all these expensive parts inside the floater. So when there was rough marine environment or something happened, everything just broke down. They lost it together with the floater. In our case, the only thing in the water is the floater. The floater belongs in the water, and all the expensive machinery is on land. Thereby, there's no danger to the expensive machinery.
Now, I'm assuming that conversations you're having with power companies, I'm assuming you're going out there and trying to, sell power companies on this idea. What's the feedback you're getting? Are they pushing back against this? Are they willing to try it?
Power companies are actually one of our largest strategic partners. We have a joint venture with EDF Renewables IL, which is a subsidiary of Électricité de France, the French national electrical company. We have a signed collaboration agreement with Meridian, which is the largest renewable energy producer in Australia and Asia region. So actually, I think that electrical companies nowadays understand that they want to lower the carbon footprint, that they want to be part of this movement for net zero emissions. That is very popular and widely accepted in different locations around the world. So I think they're very natural partners for us and can actually be very strategic to help us scale.
I'm really interested. You said that you wanted to get into politics to make the world a better place. That's a noble goal. And then you found this technology and you've founded this company. But I can't help but miss the fact that you're Ukrainian. And right now there's a war going on as we speak that largely has to do with energy. I mean, if Russia didn't have natural gas and oil, maybe, the rest of the world would have immediately said no to him. Instead, they're still letting him Putin sell his oil. What are your thoughts about if Russia did, if the world did have renewable energy, like where would we be right now? Would we even be at war?
Listen, first of all, it's important for me to say that in my opinion, technology has no borders and should not have any borders. So I don't really like to take a political stand in interviews and so on. I do think that by decarbonizing the world, some of the wars and some of the unpleasant events could be prevented. But not only that, I think we have even greater or equal in importance reasons to decarbonize the world. Look how many people are getting hurt every year directly through the way that we produce our energy. Like according to the United Nations, 60% of the world greenhouse gas emissions are derived from the way that we currently produce our electricity, which costs us many lives, which mostly hurt children and women. So that's definitely something that we need to change.
Another intriguing part about the way you started this company to me is, and I've seen this a lot, is that you were a little bit naive, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all, but when you're young, you tend to be like, hey, why not do this? And that's actually a good thing, right? Because you were able to start a company in a space where maybe a lot of more seasoned people would have said like, oh, there's no way you can do that. And so you were willing to go forward with that. Are you glad that you went forward with this idea when others probably would have stayed away from it?
It wasn't an easy journey trying to develop something that so many companies have failed in, especially that I don't come from a technical background, and especially that I'm also a woman, which is a very rare ingredient in the wave energy, not in the wave energy, in the energy sector globally, according to a study by Ernst Young, 5% of the executives or the board executives in energy companies are women. So like I didn't go with the best, let's say, tools. I wasn't the ordinary businessman or CEO in an energy sector, but I am very glad because I think that my company is really creating a change. We're pioneering the wave energy sector. We proved all the naysayers were saying like it will break down and it will never safely connect to the grid and you can't insure it and the environmentalists will object it and it will be too expensive. So we kind of proved that we can do it, like by opening the Gibraltar power station, that we can do it cost effectively and reliably and insurable and environmentally friendly and grid connected. So we're doing like an amazing work, which makes me feel very happy to get up and go to work every day, no matter which challenges are in front of me. And I think we're also leaving a great legacy for other companies to come and to also do good things for the world with their respective wave energy technologies. So I'm definitely happy that I went to that direction.
Now, you were mentioning that these systems can be bolted onto existing surfaces that are man-made structures that are in the water. Would it ever make any sense if a municipality or a state was thinking of putting in a breakwater or, a pier or a jetty to basically, this would help subsidize the cost? Because I know that there are, many coastal places where it would be nice to have a breakwater and that would sort of create more of a marina and that could create a lot more tourism. And, the biggest problem is, but the cost of putting that, breakwater in, if that breakwater could be kind of paying for itself every year, is that something that you've seen any interest in?
Definitely. And that's something that we're promoting and is our goal for the future, because every single year there's more storms because of climate change. And because of these storms, there are more and more breakwaters and structures, marine structures that are built to protect the coastline population, to protect the ports. And can you imagine like how large would the wave energy sector be if there's an actual legislation in place saying, okay, you want to put a breakwater in some place, not only to save costs and to make money from the electricity sale from the breakwater, but also to prevent the damage that the breakwater is doing to the environment, because putting cement or like these huge bulky rocks in the water is not something that is environmentally friendly. It causes movement of the sediments and it causes damage to the marine life in the area. So if already in the planning phase, we would be contacted and could already plan the jetty to accommodate our wave energy converters, we will be able to spread much faster, lower emissions in those locations, and ports are one of the most polluting entities in the world, and also make profits plus clean electricity for the port.
Now, Jesse and I have been talking about wind and solar for so long that we have a pretty good idea of like what a wind generator can do, like how many homes it can power. How many of these EcoWave power stations do you need to make power for, let's say a small sized town?
So it depends. Basically, according to the world kind of calculation, 1 megawatt is sufficient for about 600 to 1,000 households. So it really depends on the size of the breakwater that we have. Regular size of a breakwater in a port, in a commercial port, it's about 3 to 5 kilometers, sometimes even more. On that scale, you can put around 50 megawatt. 50 megawatt is about 50,000 households just from one breakwater.
Wow. And so what kind of costs are we looking at there? Is there any way that you can give us an idea of like your cost versus the cost of, say, putting in a wind generator?
So our cost and the cost of a wind generator in commercial scale when we reach a size of 20 megawatt is pretty similar. Our cost compared to solar energy, let's say right now, is super, super cheap because China came into the market and the prices went very down. The good thing about wave energy, again, that we can produce in suitable location at least twice the amount of electricity that solar energy would produce, because we also operate at night, so that covers for the gap. So basically right now the prices are attractive, and as we grow and as we commercialize and as we have more like purchasing power, we will enjoy economy of scale and also decrease the price.
And then maintenance. I mean, you mentioned that you're building all of your equipment out of, marine grade equipment, but I'm assuming you still have to maintain it. But I guess the good part is it's right there on shore. You don't have to send people out in scuba gear to fix stuff. So what are the maintenance costs like versus, let's say, offshore wind?
So versus offshore wind, much cheaper, because offshore wind needs ships and divers and moorings and cables and doing a lot of works. In everything that you do in the offshore will always be much more expensive than something that you're doing on land or the onshore. So from our last studies that we made on our Gibraltar power station, we were able to decrease the OPEX, which is the operational cost of the power station, to about 3.2% of the CAPEX, which is very much in line with other renewable energy sources.
And now tell me about the company. So you're a relatively new company, and yet you've been around long enough to have projects around the world. Are there chances for people who are interested right now in investing to get in on the company? Is it just available to private funding, or what are your thoughts for coming up in the future for your company?
So actually, in July 2021, our company listed itself on a Nasdaq capital market, the US Nasdaq. Our stock symbol is WAVE, so anybody that is interested in wave energy is more than welcome to look at our company.
That must have been a really difficult journey to get yourself publicly listed. I mean, to go from startup to public that quick. Can you tell us a little bit about what that journey was like?
So we did not go to the Nasdaq capital market as a first step. We did our first listing on Nasdaq First North, which is Nasdaq Sweden in July 2019. Where we became the first Israeli company to ever list on the Swedish Nasdaq. And when we did it, we announced that for us, it's like a stepping stone to Nasdaq US. And 2 years after, we kept our promise to the shareholders, and we kind of stepped up to Nasdaq US, where we're currently traded.
What are the plans for the future for EcoWave Power? I mean, what are some upcoming projects that you can share with us, or anything that's publicly available to share with us?
So right now we signed a very interesting collaboration agreement with Alta Sea in the port of Los Angeles. So we're planning to have a pilot installed in the port of Los Angeles, hopefully during this year. We're finalizing the construction of our second grid-connected power station here in Israel in collaboration with EDF, the French National Electrical Company, and investment from the Israeli Energy Ministry, which recognized our technology as pioneering technology. And we have received licenses for a first 1 megawatt, which is already considered commercial scale power station in the city of Porto in Portugal. So we hope this year also to go into construction of that project. In general, the company holds a project pipeline of 325.7 megawatts, which is quite significant, and we keep expanding the pipeline all the time. And our main goal is keep changing the world one wave at a time.
Jesse, I want to go back to your point, because I think a lot of people might be overlooking this. With climate change and with sea level rise, we're going to see more and more cities along coasts like Miami that are going to be putting in things to stop storms from hitting. And when they do, that's going to be a huge cost to those cities. But now that my brain has started, the gears are turning here, I'm thinking that EcoWave Power is a great way to complement those things that you need to put in to protect your city with a way to also offset the costs and to make renewable energy. Have you been seeing that happening at all anywhere in the world?
So we're actually in discussions with the government of Gibraltar. Our first, we entered the power purchase agreement with the government of Gibraltar for 5 megawatts, which is up to 15% of all their energy needs. We started with a pilot on a place called the Ammunition Jetty to prove that we can safely connect to the electrical grid, because wave energy, in the past had a big question mark on whether it can connect to the grid. And the jetty is too small. It's very small. It's very old. So we can't really expand there for the whole 5 megawatts from 100 kilowatt installed capacity that we have right now. So we are in discussions with the government of Gibraltar that when they're planning to build like a new breakwater, a new marina on the east side of Gibraltar, which is the wavier side of Gibraltar. And then we will try to already get involved in this process during the planning phase in order to make the combination much easier. So yeah, we've seen it happen, but I think that the more awareness wave energy will get, and the more we see commercial scale installation in different locations, it will become more and more common.
What can people do that are watching right now to help get this kind of technology in their part of the world?
So I think that every person can contribute differently. There's some people that can contribute by knowledge sharing, engineers and technical people and so on. Some people can contribute by investing. Some people can contribute by making the right connections to their municipality or to the government. Some people can contribute like you're contributing and basically create awareness for different media platforms and media channels. So I think all of us can contribute a little bit to make the world a better place.
Ina, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really great to learn about your company.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching Disruptive Investing. We hope you found that enjoyable, and we'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. The more subscribers we have, the more people we can interview, so you're really helping us out if you hit that.
And if you want to hear our thoughts on this company, you can head over to patreon.com/nowyouknow, sign up for the Investor Club, and we're going to do an Investor Club bonus story about our thoughts about this company.
Thank you so much for watching
Disruptive Investing.